Welcome back to another edition of the Review of Champions. As always, I'm your host, Lord Deathman, and on today's show, we're reviewing the 6th episode of Marvel's What If. What if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark? That's right, Eric Stevens, aka Killmonger, is back. The fan-favorite villain takes center stage in this episode of What If, and the results is a devastating, if somewhat convoluted plan. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and sound off in the comments to let us know what you think of this show. All right, the champions have assembled, so we're going to dive in. We have Taylor today, and we also have the Grandmaster. Guys, say hi to everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
All right, now that we've dispensed with introductions, let's just get right into the discussion. I'd like to start with Taylor first in terms of your general impressions of the episode. What did you think of it?
Well, the episode was fine. I don't think it was as good as most of the other episodes of the season so far. I think it was a little bit lackluster. But I liked, it was well written and the animation was good, and I liked seeing a lot of the characters and locations from the MCU again. So my impression is positive, but not overwhelmingly so for this one.
Right, so this feels like it was a lull, because so far for you, I know the series has sort of been climbing the ladders in terms of getting a little better with each episode. Is that the case?
For the most part, yeah. I wasn't really thrilled with the last episode that much, but only because I've seen enough zombie apocalypses to last me a lifetime.
Right. The only thing they can do now is actually make you go through one at this point.
Exactly.
Zombies are so popular. Grandmaster, what were your impressions of the episode?
Well, I thought it was a bit better than last week's episode. It's not my favorite episode. It remains episode 4. I thought it was really interesting. What if Eric Stevens, aka Killmonger, saves Tony Stark, and the consequences of that? I thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in this episode, and Killmonger's plan is rather dense. And I kind of like all the twists and turns they kind of take you on with the plan. And I also like the fake out moments in which you think Eric is sort of going to get apprehended, or there's going to be a monkey wrench in his plan, and then he kind of manages to turn it around. This is a different side of the villain from the movies in terms of Black Panther, where he was much more of a physical threat. He did have that calculating mental presence, but he was much more of a fighter and a killer. Whereas in this episode, we see Eric Killmonger, the strategist. So given that I've sort of thrown all of my likes out there for the episode, which is really Eric and the plan itself, Taylor, what were your highlights for the episode, and any dislikes if you had them?
Like I said, I think the writing was pretty solid. The Killmonger's plan was pretty well written and pretty well developed. Again, I liked seeing a lot of different characters. Everyone in Wakanda, Black Panther again, Ross, Pepper Potts, Claw. It's always good to see all of them. Rhodey. It was good to see all of them, and to me, this was a pretty standard what if. It was just took a what if something was done differently. This is one thing that could have happened. The whole climax with the battle in Wakanda was good, but again, it wasn't great. I thought it was a little bit underdone, frankly.
Really, that's interesting, because to me,
right
they pack so much story into this half hour that so many things happen. You actually get to see Queen Ramonda on the battlefield. You get a little bit of Okoye. You get some Shiri. You get some Pepper Potts. It's almost a little too compressed. They're almost right at the border, I think, where they try to squeeze way too much into these half hours. But I'd rather have more than less. But I'd be curious to know your take on that, Taylor.
Yeah, there was a lot in there. Like I said, the story was pretty well written, and there was a lot of stuff. I just thought that the actual scene when they let the drones in, and then he shut them down, and then he turned them back on again, it actually did kind of fool me, because I thought he was going to use those drones to conquer Wakanda and forcefully put himself on the throne. Instead, he used them as a tool to make himself the hero of Wakanda and get the throne through trickery as opposed to through force. But I thought the battle was just kind of blah. It was, a bunch of Dora Milaje swinging their spears and slicing robots in half over and over and over, and Rhino riding through and knocking over a bunch of robots.
Yeah.
So I just thought the battle could have been a little bit more spectacular if they had wanted it to. But again, overall, to me it was just sort of a standard what if story, not as mind blowing as some of the earlier ones, like the Doctor Strange and the what if the Avengers all got killed before they became the Avengers. Those are my two favorites so far, and I thought those were pretty mind blowing. This one was solid. It was good. Just didn't blow me away.
Right. And that makes sense. What if, even in the comic books as a series, is really, if they don't grab you right at the premise, there's no way you're going to be able to enjoy the journey the rest of the way. So we all have been at the comic book store and kind of seen that issue of What If, where you're like, I don't know about that premise. It might not be for me. And then from there, you're like, that's a skip, and maybe you'll check out the next issue or something like that. And that's the great thing about it, at least being an anthology scene. But some technical problems in the episode that I saw were things like, how do you use a spear so that it kind of mimics how a sword works, right? It's either one or the other. Usually you can't use a spear to like cut something in half. You can use it to impale someone. And they did a lot of slicing things in half with their spears. I know the Wakandans are good and vibranium is strong, but man, that would take a lot of pounds per square inch to get that to work out for you. Tony seems to die oddly of a wound to the shoulder. That I found a little weird and problematic. But I will say, for me, the animation in this episode was really done well. And I think with the focus being on Michael B. Jordan, you get to see him emote, like his emotive expressions. I think his acting was really good in this episode, and I think that they animated it very well in his close-ups and his body language. They really kind of captured the character from the movies. So kudos to the animation team. But moving on to Grandmaster, what were your likes and dislikes of this episode?
I wouldn't really say a dislike, but seeing Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther get killed on screen,
That's beginning to become a what if pastime.
Yeah, exactly.
T'Challa murder, T'Challicide.
Yeah. And stop killing Chadwick, please, with Disney. But
there's no way they could have known when they were producing the series, right? So.
No, of course. But I watch it now, a year after his passing, so that's why I bring it up. But that's basically my only real thing that I can say that I didn't like that much. Overall, I thought it was a solid episode. I agree with Taylor, episode 3 and especially 4 are better than this one, but I think it's right below that. Below those. I thought it was interesting scheme that was unfolded before our eyes. The double crossing of Claw and
Tony and Obadiah.
Yeah.
There's a lot you got to roll with his plan, right? You have to let that suspension of disbelief soak in that he had planned it all out to the nth degree. But the plan itself, does make sense and at least towards his goal.
Well, yeah, if you want to take control of Wakanda, I think it's better if you get control given to you by the Wakandans than if you take control by force. I think that wouldn't work. I liked actually how they mixed Iron Man, Age of Ultron, and Black Panther into 1.5 hour episode.
You also get a little bit of Iron Man 1 in there too.
Yeah, that's what I said. Iron Man.
Okay.
Iron Man 2 is also a little bit in there, I think.
Yeah, Iron Man 2 as well with the drones.
Those drones looked a lot like the drones from Iron Man 2.
Absolutely. That was the vibe I got as well. yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the episode. There's not much specifics, likes or anything. It was a clever story, well written, like you said, well animated, well acted, which is a plus for this episode because some of the voice acting has been shaky in the series so far. But also the voices that were not original, like Pepper Potts or Tony Stark, didn't bother me at all. Well done, and yeah, kudos for this episode. For me, it's a step up from last week's episode with the zombies, because like Taylor said, enough zombie apocalypses have been coming up on my screen already. So
Right. You have to be a die-hard fan of zombies to
I know you
not
are.
be able to get enough of it. Yeah, I am a zombie fan, so I had no problems with the last episode.
You're Lord Deathman for nothing, huh?
Exactly. The death part is real.
Yeah.
But that being said, this episode, though, it sounds like everybody thinks that this was just an okay episode, or for some people, it might not have been as great as other episodes that came before. But I have to say that I neither thought that this episode was incredibly better than ones that came previous or, low. So I want to say they're keeping the pace kind of flatline in terms of the quality, where we weren't quite climbing the ladders of quality. But this certainly wasn't an ebb for me. It didn't dip into a valley. I kind of like Killmonger just as a character. And I've always thought that he's one of the stronger villains in the MCU because he actually is not much of a sympathetic villain to me. He seems to balance the qualities of sympathy that Disney always goes for with the villains with the idea of him actually just being a sociopath. There's an aspect to Killmonger where it just seems he enjoys suffering and killing people. And I think, that comes a little close to the villainy that I kind of grew up on versus, maybe I might want to take the villain out, for a therapy session or something like that. But guys, do you have any other remarks about this? Anything else that stood out? Open forum here. Just looking for any comments on the episode itself.
No, not specific. Like I say, I like the flow of it. I like the way it was written. I like the combination of movies and how the story deviates from what we know. Yeah. If let's just say if it was a comic book, I would have picked it up.
Right. That makes sense to me. I think I would have picked it up at least to browse it in the store if I didn't actually make the purchase and take it home and bag and board it.
That brings back memories. Browsing comic books in the store.
Indeed. So, yeah, I think the episode overall was a win for me. But quick question for you guys, and either one of you can take this if you feel like it. But do you think this episode is going to have any impact on the end? Are we going to get to see Killmonger again? Because this episode kind of ends on an open note where Shuri and Potts sort of have the line on Killmonger. They sort of understand what his plan is. So I don't want to say the ending was unsatisfying, but it was definitely open-ended. And I'm kind of hoping that they kind of tie it up before we reach the end of the series, But what do you guys think?
Well, to me, it still feels like one of episodes that take place on different worlds, or on different worlds within the multiverse, and maybe there's gonna be a big payoff in the end. That could be an Avengers event type crossover or something, but. Yeah, I don't see it happening for now. It's just one-off episodes, and they're enjoyable, but they don't really affect the overall MCU or even an overall arc in this show. It would surprise me. There are no hints as far as I can see.
Taylor, any thoughts from you? Did you think the ending was satisfying as is, or would you like to see them pursue some kind of follow-up?
It was fine as is for me, and I agree with the Grandmaster. I know a lot of people are predicting big crossovers and stuff, and it could happen, but I I would be perfectly fine if it didn't happen, and I won't be at all surprised if it doesn't happen. I think these are standalone episodes. I mean, they're obviously all happening in different universes. We've seen Tony Stark die 3 different ways now, I think. So some for there to be a crossover, there would have to be some grand event that brings all these streams together for some reason. and I don't know, like, do they each save their own universes? do they team up and go and save the zombie universe, and then save the Killmonger universe, and then save the universe where all the Avengers died? I mean, that seems kind of overblown.
Yeah.
For this show. And then what do they do next season if they're gonna if they do that? I think this is the Twilight Zone. They're just standalone episodes. It's an anthology.
Right, and the Watcher is your Rod Serling.
Exactly.
Running it down for you every episode.
Yeah, I must say the casting of Jeffrey Wright for this role is excellent. I had my doubts in the beginning, but when I first saw it, they introduced him as the voice of the Watcher, but no, his voice is excellent.
Yeah, he's doing an incredible job, I think, with the little material he has, but it's so well written, and he's just doing it with such conviction, like professional actors do, that he is really doing a fantastic job, and I hope that he can hang with us for a couple more seasons on the show. So, but yeah, it seems, just traveling the social verse and all of that, it seems like excitement for this particular Marvel series might have fallen off just a little bit. Not as much chatter as in the beginning. So What If may not be for everyone, and maybe not even for everybody in the fandom, but I certainly am enjoying it. And for the folks at home, it looks like the panel is also enjoying it as well. So guys, if you don't have any closing remarks, I will close out the show.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Well,
Good
then
to go.
people, I'm sorry, Taylor, go ahead. You're good?
No, I'm just saying good. I'm good. Thanks.
All right. Well, people, be sure to check us out on social media and consider joining the champions on the forum at sakar.freeforums.net. All are welcome. As always, thanks to the panel for joining me today, and thanks for all of you guys out there for listening. Be well.